Hey everybody, what is up? Welcome back to Final Trade. You knew we were going to have a pre-modern power episode on my favorite card ever, Curse Scroll. Pay 3 mana, tap it, name a card. Your opponent grabs a card at random from your hand and looks at it, and if it's the named card, or they have the same name, then you get to deal 2 damage to target creature or player. That all sounds kind of benign, but man, this card had an incredible impact. This was maybe the most sought after card of the Tempest block, at least until Mox Diamond came around in Stronghold. And at the time, these would sell for 30 or so dollars while Tempest was still in print. Then for about 20 years, once we got connected marketplaces, they sold for about $5 a copy, and only more recently retook that kind of $30-40 range for a good quality condition copy. But the thing that this really brought to the Magic world was, one, it put some better direct damage into decks of colors that would not normally have it. Things like blue decks or white decks, maybe black decks, even though black has some kind of limited direct damage capability sometimes. So it did that. But more interestingly, it popularized this idea that maybe a deck is best if it can play all its cards, gain the advantage of playing cards, then simply hold one card in its hand. You know, cards reserved in your hand have a lot of value. That's a good resource to have, but playing cards has value too. So what if you build decks around the idea that I will play all but one card, then that one card, when I activate Curse Scroll, I will name it, and my opponent has no choice but to choose that one card at random from amongst the one in my hand, and then let me do 2 damage to something. And that really became great for decks like Sly and Suicide, which were 2 very popular, very fast, and very powerful aggro decks in this era. And so both of those decks would seek to play a bunch of small creatures and some different types of disruption, but a lot of cheap cards. Those decks always had shallow mana curves, and then they would clean out their hand fairly quickly, and then they can make use of Curse Scroll with their extra mana they had laying around each turn and just generate more mana without needing to use additional cards. And so that was really the great thing that this innovated and kind of created. That was not really a strong idea in Magic before, that low number of cards in your hand could itself be a resource, or that sameness of cards in your hand could be a resource, because of course it would also work if you have 3 mountains in your hand, then you name mountain, your opponent has no choice but to choose a mountain at random from your hand. And so that's why this is such a great old card. It's also reserved list, so not really a lot of opportunity to reprint it. I love it because it was just such a popular card, and I played kind of Sly style, not directly Sly, but I did play a lot of Suicide decks in high school when I played Magic as a kid. And this was, of course, a popular card. I think I had 3 copies of it back at the time, and I know I pulled at least 2 from packs, and I paid for 1 at a card store. But now you see I have quite a few more. And of course, one day when the grading houses get their acts together, I'll send some of the better quality versions of these into graded. But man, what a great old card. What a classic piece of Magic history. Certainly a great piece of pre-modern power. If you like this kind of content, like, comment, share, and subscribe. Join me on my Final Trade. Thanks a lot.